Hey, I'm Amel Bizri,
Hey, I'm in South Bookva.
and the reflective movie that we chose to watch was the Amy documentary. In Soft, which mental health issue is highlighted in this film?
The main mental health issue that were highlighted in this film were manic and bipolar, depression, um, self-injury, severe drug use, and alcohol use. The main two drugs that were mentioned in this movie were heroin and crack. The film highlighted the fact that Amy also suffered from bulimia nervosa, and it was documented through account and statement made by Amy herself about binge eating and purging after.
That's right. There was this one scene when she was in the studio and they said she ate this big meal and then they found a mess in the bathroom, or statements that Amy made to her mom about this new diet that where she just eats all she wants and then lets it all out. So that was definitely indicative of that.
Yeah, definitely. It's alarming for somebody to make that statement. It's dangerous. Uh, do you think it's accurately portray the mental health issue and educate the public? Is this film betrayed that, and you think it fulfilled that role?
Yeah, I definitely think that since it was a documentary and it was just kind of giving an account of her life and her journey in this industry and, what kind of led to her demise, it just, it was just accounting these symptoms and behaviors, and I think it was accurate. It wasn't adding anything extra just for the sake of dramatic effect. It was, I think it was accurate.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. However, the documentary does not talk about what kind of bipolar or manic depression Amy was experiencing. Was it bipolar 1, 2, or systolic disorder?
right. it I think there's this one, just seeing those images, if you remember, of her like shoes being bloody and like scratches being on her,
Yeah.
and her husband or fiance at the time, Blake. I feel like all of those things, like her punching walls and saying the walls were bloody, that possibly her mood swings were violent and extreme. And I don't know, we don't know Blake's participation or how things escalated because we were not in that relationship to know the details of it. But I think there was indications that her mood swings might have been extreme.
Yeah, a lot of that comes, I think, because we didn't know her day to day life, what she was doing, how she was living, the amount of pressure. We know a general idea, but we don't know. We weren't there to observe. A professional wasn't there to assess that client when they're going through all this emotion and holocausters and
Yeah.
that.
I did notice that a lot of her symptoms of manic depression or bipolar depression, they didn't like completely come out in the documentary until after the severe drug and alcohol abuse.
Yeah.
And that makes me wonder if that was induced by substance or medication abuse, which, I mean, I think it could be possible just with her coexisting or comorbidities of mental health issues, that kind of just drove that home.
Yeah, especially that she showed signs. She did show sign early on before she got really, really famous. She showed sign of that. The book states on page 538 that the bipolar disorder is a result from an interaction between genetic, biological, and socio psycho, psychosocial determinants. And that was the case of Amy.
I think so too. She had so many like factors coming in, and she had people in her life, like important people that she looked up to, like her father, for example, who kind of fed off of her fame, and maybe friends that, I guess for obvious reasons backed off of being her, like, you know, really involved with her day-to-day life because of, you know, what she was doing on a daily basis as far as drugs go. But that means that she didn't have the support. Like, people loved her in her life, but that solid, like, support system, I don't think it was there. And the pressure from the, you know, the fame and everything that was going on with her.
Absolutely, absolutely. Seeing Amy Winehouse down herself so heavily while performing with Tony Bennett, regardless of her idolization and his talent, showed how that she didn't seem to grasp how singular she was in this industry, how important she was. She didn't value herself that much. She didn't see what other people are seeing in her.
Yeah, I remember that scene. She kept saying, like, I'll get it right. And like she just kept, like, kind of stopping herself in the midst of sounding beautiful. And it was like, you know, she just, I feel like she didn't know what she really was or how amazing she was. I do think the documentary shed a lot of light on the fact that her alcohol abuse and her drug abuse were a mental, like, illness. Like, that's not, addiction is illness.
Yeah.
And the National Institute of Mental Health, the website we used in our references, that's where I found that, like, you know, absolute statement. And it's so true. She was sick, you
Yeah.
know.
One thing I noticed on the National Institutes of Medicine article on bipolar disorder was that it stated that family and friend may notice the symptoms, but not realize that the symptoms are part of more significant problem. You look at your loved ones and you see that they are off or something is wrong, but you don't think of it to that extent. We're not I think now we get into understand mental health and normalize the conversation about mental health. And now we know what bipolar person will act like. We know the symptom, the common symptoms, and that will help family members and next generation to be aware of those things, to notice them before that person get hurt or hurt somebody else.
Right. Her mother, I remember, this is in reference to her bulimia, but her mother saying, you know, when my daughter told me that statement that I referenced earlier in regard to eating and this new diet and then purging, her mom said, I just didn't think anything of it. I thought it was a phase. I thought it would pass. But, like, recognizing in your child or in a loved one or in someone in your life that this is an issue. It's not a phase. It's an incorrect way of thinking that is led by an illness, you know. And I think that's really, I don't know, that's why I say the thing about her support system, or also how you say just our perception of mental illness has changed a
Yeah,
lot.
of course, that was brought up in our discussion the past week
That's right.
about how the media doing what they should be doing, and is the conversation getting that the stigma, breaking that stigma and talking about mental health that was normalized. And yeah, I think we are, as a generation, talking about mental health and being more aware of it. Amal, in what way will you take what you learned in this film into how you care for a client in practice, for example? How would you take that? What did you take from that?
I think the main thing is remembering to treat a person as a whole, or holistically caring for them. Um,
Absolutely.
you're not just looking at a diagnosis on a chart or a piece of paper. Amy was, for example, in her case, she was a whole person with a past and a history and loved ones and ambition, and all of her circumstances are really what led her to where she was, you know. And treating each patient with in mind that, you know, you're not just treating, you know, the diagnosis, you are treating the person, I think is really what I would take.
Absolutely, absolutely. A combination of her own choices, her position in fame, and her mental illness caused her to be spiral and caused her to have a tragic ending and end to a talented, brilliant young woman. Um, Thank you so much for watching, and
Thank you.
thank you.